The planet Vereen was known across the galaxy for its glowing skies and silver-blue oceans that stretched endlessly. Every sunrise painted the clouds with shades of gold and lilac. The people of Vereen were tall, graceful, and wise. They lived in floating cities where music filled the air and light flowed like water through crystal streets. Among them was their beloved princess, Luni, whose voice was said to calm storms and whose eyes reflected the stars. Every world in the nearby systems knew her name. Songs were written about her, portraits of her hung in the halls of rulers, and ambassadors from many planets visited Vereen just to speak with her. Some came with gifts of jewels, others with promises of trade and power. Every visitor spoke with admiration. Every leader tried to win her favor. Lune smiled to them all, but her heart felt empty. She had learned to smile not because she was happy, but because it was expected of her. Her advisors told her that she must prepare to choose an alliance soon. The galaxy was entering a new era of unity, and each royal house was expected to form bonds that would shape the future. To Lune, it sounded less like a choice and more like a duty. Every candidate who came forward was strong, charming, or powerful, but none of them made her feel at peace. When she looked at them, she felt like she was watching performances. Every word seemed rehearsed, every smile felt hollow. Then came the Earth delegation. Humanity had only recently joined the Galactic Union. Compared to the older civilizations, Earth was still learning. Their ships were small, their cities not as advanced, and their history filled with lessons of mistakes and growth. Many looked down on them, calling them naive dreamers. Yet others admired their courage. Humans kept exploring, even when they were uncertain. They laughed, they hoped, and they tried again after every fall. Lune had heard of them but never met one until that day. The Earth team arrived quietly. They did not bring golden banners or loud music. There were only a few humans in simple uniforms, each carrying data pads and translation devices. Among them was a young engineer named Aaron. He was not a leader or a diplomat. He came only to help maintain the translation systems that connected different alien languages during the Peace Summit. He stood near the edge of the Grand Hall, carefully checking his tools unnoticed by most. Lune saw him by chance. Her floating platform had stopped near the technical section as the main system flickered. She noticed the human kneeling beside an open console, working with calm focus. His hands moved quickly but gently. He spoke softly to the device, almost as if it could hear him. He had a quiet kind of confidence, not the loud pride she had grown used to seeing in others. When the system failed again, he frowned slightly and looked around. Lune, curious, stepped closer. The guards moved to stop her, but she raised her hand. She wanted to watch. The human noticed her then and stood up at once. He looked surprised but not afraid. His eyes were calm and his tone remained steady. "Apologies, Princess," he said. "The signal converter is not matching your system's frequency." "I just need a few more minutes," Lune tilted her head. "You know who I am?" "Yes, Your Highness," he replied. "You are the Princess of Vereen." "I read the orientation notes." He said it so simply as if it were an everyday fact. There was no flattery in his tone, no admiration shining in his eyes. He spoke to her like one person to another. That surprised her even more than his confidence. "Do you need help?" she asked. His eyes widened slightly.
"Help from you?"
"That would be a first, Princess." The guards looked alarmed, but Lune smiled for real this time. "Maybe it should not be the first," she said. She knelt beside him despite the protests of her advisors. Together they looked at the open device. Aaron explained how the human system used different signal pulses, and she listened with full attention. He did not speak as if she were a royal who needed simplifications. He spoke like a teacher who believed she could understand. She asked questions, and he answered them patiently. When the translator finally lit up again, the hall filled with gentle hums of success. The diplomats began their speeches once more, but Lune did not hear them clearly. She was still thinking about the human who had spoken to her like a real person. Before leaving, he gave her a small nod, a gesture of quiet respect. Then he returned to his tools and continued his work without waiting for thanks. That night, Lune stood on her balcony looking at the stars. The air shimmered softly with the lights of the city below. She had met countless beings from every corner of the galaxy, yet none had stayed in her thoughts like that quiet human. He had not tried to impress her or praise her. He had only done his work with care and honesty. For the first time in a long while, Looney felt curious instead of tired. The next day, she attended the summit again. The hall was filled with grand speeches about progress, trade, and alliances. Looney listened politely, but her gaze sometimes drifted toward the technical section where the humans were stationed. She saw Aaron again, this time adjusting the sound field for a speaker from another planet. He seemed happy doing small things that most would ignore. When something went wrong, he did not complain. He simply fixed it. During a short break, Looney walked over. Her advisors tried to stop her, whispering that it was not proper for a princess to speak with a technician. But she ignored them. "Engineer Aaron," she said, reading his name tag. He turned, slightly surprised again. "Princess Lunai, everything working fine?" "Yes," she said with a small smile. "I came to thank you." He nodded politely. "You already did yesterday when you listened?" That answer made her pause. Few ever said such things to her. Most thanked her endlessly, hoping for favor. Aaron spoke as if gratitude itself was a simple act, not a performance. She found that refreshing. They talked briefly about the summit and the challenges of working between so many species. Aaron explained how humans often struggled to understand alien systems, yet they kept learning. He said that humans valued mistakes because they led to improvement. Looney thought about that long after she left him. On her world, mistakes were often seen as shameful. But this human spoke of them as natural steps of growth. In the following days, Lunai found herself noticing small things about the human team. They laughed together easily. They helped one another without orders. They asked questions instead of pretending to know everything. There was a warmth among them that reminded her of something she could not name. It was as if they carried a piece of hope wherever they went. At one point, she saw Aaron sharing food with another alien technician who seemed lost. He divided his portion without hesitation and smiled. It was such a simple act, yet it filled her heart with quiet wonder. On Vereen, kindness had become rare among the highborn. Every gesture had a reason, every favor a price. But here was someone doing good because it felt right. That evening, Looney returned to her room and looked at her reflection in the mirror wall. She touched the glowing fabric of her gown, woven with threads of starlight, and suddenly it felt meaningless. What was the worth of beauty or power if it built a wall between hearts? She realized how long she had been surrounded by admiration but not affection, by applause but not honesty. She wondered what it would be like to walk among people who did not know her title, to work beside someone who saw her as equal. She thought of Aaron's calm eyes and the way he had spoken about learning, not perfection. Something about that idea felt right, like a breath of fresh air after years of silence. The next morning, when the summit resumed, Looney made a small decision. She asked that the human team be invited to her research hall for a cultural exchange. Her advisors looked uneasy, saying it was unusual, but she smiled gently and insisted. "It is time to learn from those who see differently," she said. As she watched Aaron and his team walk into the bright hall later that day, Looney felt something stir in her heart. For the first time, she was not the one being admired. She was the one who wanted to understand, and though she could not yet name it, she sensed that this meeting was the beginning of something that would change her life, and perhaps the fate of two worlds forever. The morning light on Vereen looked like soft silver rain falling from the sky. The floating gardens glowed gently as the twin suns rose. Princess Looney stood near the window of her study, watching the light spread across the horizon. Today was special. The human team would visit her research hall to share their technology and culture. It was her idea, and everyone on her planet was talking about it. Her advisors had been uncertain. They said it was unusual for a royal princess to spend time with a group of technicians from a young planet. Some called it a waste of time. Others said it might lower the dignity of Vereen. But Looney did not listen to such words. She had made up her mind. For the first time, she was following what she truly felt, not what others expected. When the human team arrived, they were amazed by the sight before them. The research hall was made of living crystal that changed color with the air. The floor reflected the sky above, and soft music floated in the background. The humans walked carefully, afraid to touch anything. Looney noticed their wonder and smiled. She remembered how some aliens had walked through her palace proudly, pretending they were not impressed. The humans were honest about their feelings, and she liked that. Aaron stood near the front, carrying his small toolkit as always. His eyes moved around the hall, not with greed or envy, but with curiosity. Looney greeted them warmly. Her long silver robe shimmered like the sea as she spoke. "Welcome, friends from Earth. I hope you will feel comfortable here." Aaron bowed slightly and replied, "Thank you, Princess. We are honored to be here." His tone was calm, respectful, and simple. Lune asked them to sit and offered them food made from verine fruits that sparkled like glass beads. The humans tasted them and smiled, saying the flavor was sweet and strange but pleasant. Lune laughed softly. It was rare for her to laugh in public, and her advisors exchanged looks of surprise. After the meal, Lune guided the visitors through the hall. She showed them how verine used light energy to grow plants, heal illnesses, and power their cities. The humans listened carefully, asking questions about how the systems worked. Aaron, in particular, asked about the structure of the crystal circuits. Lune explained, and he nodded, then shared how humans used solar power and simple materials to create similar effects on a smaller scale. His explanation was not filled with fancy terms, but his ideas were clear and clever. Lune's scientists looked impressed. They had never thought humans could design such practical solutions with limited tools. Aaron smiled modestly and said that humans were good at solving problems when they had few resources. He said that necessity made humans creative. Lune felt inspired by that thought. On Vereen, people had everything they needed, and sometimes that made them stop dreaming. She realized that comfort could silence curiosity. Later, Lune invited the human team to a quiet balcony filled with glowing plants. The air smelled fresh and small lights floated like gentle fireflies. The humans sat together while Lune asked them about Earth. They told her about oceans, mountains, and forests. They described rain that fell from the clouds, wind that carried the smell of salt from the sea, and the warmth of a campfire under the night sky. Lune listened closely, her eyes shining. She had never seen rain. On Vereen, the weather was controlled. Every sunrise and sunset was perfect, every breeze soft. For the first time, she found herself longing to see a storm or feel real wind on her face. When it was Aaron's turn to speak, he talked about the people of Earth. He said humans were not perfect, but they were always learning. He spoke about how they cared for one another in times of trouble, and how small acts of kindness often changed lives. He told a story about his grandmother, who used to plant flowers near broken roads so that travelers would see beauty even in forgotten places. Lune felt her heart warm at his words. No one on Vereen planted flowers for strangers. People only did things that were recorded, honored, or celebrated. The simplicity of human kindness touched her deeply. As the evening continued, Lune asked Aaron what he thought about her world. He looked around for a moment and said softly, "It is beautiful, but it feels quiet. Everything here is perfect, but sometimes perfection can feel lonely." His honesty surprised her. No one had ever spoken about Vereen like that. Most visitors praised its beauty endlessly. Lune realized that he was right. The peace and perfection of her world often left little space for mistakes, surprises, or laughter. She nodded and said, "Sometimes I feel that too." They talked for a long time. The stars began to appear and the floating lights of the gardens danced above the balcony. The humans slowly returned to their quarters, but Lune asked Aaron to stay a little longer. She wanted to know more about Earth's small things, the smell of rain, the taste of real fruit, the noise of crowded streets. He described them with gentle detail. His voice carried warmth that made the images come alive in her mind. At one point, Lune asked, "Aaron, do humans ever stop dreaming?" He thought for a moment and answered, "No, Princess. Even when things are hard, we keep dreaming. Dreams are what keep us moving forward." His answer made her quiet for a while. Then she said, "Here on Vereen, we stopped dreaming long ago. Everything is already made perfect by our ancestors. Maybe that is why we have forgotten how to feel wonder." Aaron looked at her kindly. "Maybe wonder is not something you find, Princess. Maybe it is something you remember." That night, Lune could not sleep. She sat by her window again, thinking about his words. She realized that she had been living in a world without wonder. Her life had been a series of ceremonies, speeches, and expectations. She had never noticed the sound of the wind through the sky gardens, or the way the stars changed color before dawn. She wondered if humans, even with their simple lives, were richer in spirit than many great civilizations. The next morning, Lune visited the human quarters without warning. Her guards looked confused, but she waved them off. The humans were surprised to see her standing at their door, dressed in a plain robe instead of royal garments. Aaron greeted her with a polite smile. "Princess, what brings you here?" Lune replied, I want to learn how you work. May I help with your maintenance today? The humans exchanged glances, unsure how to respond. Aaron smiled and said, Of course. But there is nothing royal about fixing wires, Lune laughed. That is exactly what I want. Together they went to the summit hall where some machines had stopped syncing properly. Aaron handed her a small tool and explained how to check the energy links. Lune followed his instructions carefully. For the first time in her life, she was learning something with her hands instead of through holographic lessons. She made small mistakes and Aaron corrected her gently. Each time she fixed something, he nodded approvingly. The feeling of creating something real filled her with unexpected joy. As they worked, Lune noticed how the humans encouraged one another. When one of them struggled, others helped without hesitation. There was no ranking, no pride, only cooperation. It felt so natural. She realized that humans did not measure worth by power or title, but by effort and heart. It made her think about her own people, who often valued status more than sincerity. When the repairs were done, Lune looked at her hands. They were slightly marked from the tools, and she felt proud of those small marks. They were proof that she had done something real. She turned to Aaron and said, Now I understand why you love your work. It feels alive. He smiled softly. Yes, princess. Sometimes small things bring the biggest peace. That evening, Lune invited the humans to a music gathering. She wanted them to see Varine's art. The hall was filled with glowing instruments that made sounds through light. The music was beautiful, but she noticed something new. The humans listened politely, yet they looked thoughtful. After the performance, Aaron told her that on Earth, music often came from feelings rather than perfection. He said human songs were full of emotion, even when the voice was not perfect. Lune thought about that for a long time. Maybe perfection was not what made something beautiful. Maybe beauty came from the heart. Before leaving, Aaron said, Thank you, princess, for letting us be part of your world. Lune replied softly, No, Aaron. Thank you for reminding me what it means to feel. When she returned to her room that night, she sat under the soft glow of the moonlight and realized something important. For years, she had been surrounded by people who wanted her for her title. Now, for the first time, she had met someone who saw her not as a symbol but as a person. The thought filled her with calm joy and quiet fear. She knew her world would soon ask her to make choices that followed duty, not heart. But something inside her whispered that this human had already changed the way she saw everything. The days after the cultural exchange passed peacefully. The summit on Varine was reaching its final week, and soon the visiting teams from other worlds would return to their home planets. The halls of the royal palace were busier than ever. Ambassadors and envoys from every system were preparing for the closing ceremony where Princess Lune would make an important announcement. Everyone expected her to choose a powerful alliance. Every world hoped it would be theirs. But Lune's thoughts were far from politics. Her mind kept returning to the quiet human engineer who had shown her a world beyond perfection. Each time she remembered his words, a gentle warmth filled her heart. He had taught her things no royal advisor ever could. He had taught her to notice the sound of wind, to enjoy mistakes, to laugh without worry, and to find peace in simplicity. Lune sat in her study, surrounded by crystal screens filled with messages from rulers who wished to meet her. The names of great leaders flashed before her eyes, but none of them made her smile. Every message was a promise of strength and wealth. Not one spoke of kindness or peace. She turned off the screens and closed her eyes. She could still hear Aaron's voice saying, Sometimes small things bring the biggest peace. Those words stayed with her like a melody she could not forget. Later that evening, Lune went to the observation deck where she had first met Aran. The night was calm and the stars shimmered above the silver sea. She stood there silently, her long robe moving gently with the wind. After a few minutes, she heard soft footsteps behind her. When she turned, she saw Aaron holding a small device in his hands. Princess, he said politely, I came to fix the lighting panel. It keeps flickering. Lune smiled faintly. Do you always work, even at night? He shrugged. Machines do not wait for the morning. His answer made her laugh softly. You sound like someone who never rests. Aaron smiled. Maybe, but fixing things helps me rest inside. It gives me peace. Lune nodded and stepped closer. You always speak about peace, Aaron. Is it something humans think about often? He looked thoughtful. Peace is what we try to find even when life is not easy. We are not perfect, Princess. We make mistakes all the time. But when we help each other, we feel peace. She watched him adjust the light until it shone steady and bright. You fix more than machines, she said gently. You fix hearts too. Aaron looked surprised. I did not know hearts were broken here. Lunai's eyes lowered. They do not break loudly on Vereen. They break quietly, behind smiles. For a moment, they both stood in silence. The soft glow of the stars surrounded them. Lunai had never spoken like that to anyone. With Aaron, she did not have to hide behind royal manners or perfect words. She could simply be herself. Aaron looked up at the sky. On Earth, people often say that the stars remind them they are part of something bigger. Maybe you feel that too. I used to, Lunai said. But lately the stars seem far away. When I was younger, I dreamed of exploring other worlds. Now every dream feels like a duty. Aaron turned to her. Maybe dreams only feel heavy when they belong to others. You should have your own. His words settled deep in her heart. She realized that all her life she had been living other people's dreams. Her advisors dreamed of glory for Vereen, her people dreamed of her perfection, and the galaxy dreamed of her alliance. But no one had ever asked what she dreamed for herself. The next day, preparations for the Grand Council began. The palace shone with bright banners representing many worlds. The atmosphere buzzed with excitement. Rumors spread quickly that Princess Lunai would soon choose a partner for Vereen's alliance. Many said it would be the leader of the Solara Dominion, a powerful ruler who had offered great wealth and technology. Others believed she might align with the Vorn Confederation, who promised strong protection and influence. Every guest wanted to witness her decision. But Lunai's heart felt heavy. She walked through the decorated halls and saw faces filled with expectation. To everyone else, this moment was about politics and progress. To her, it felt like a cage closing. She longed for the peace she had felt while talking to Aaron about simple things. That peace felt more valuable than any alliance. Later that evening, Lunai went to the human quarters again. The air smelled of rain from the simulated weather system the humans had requested to study. She found Aran outside, sitting under the artificial drizzle, letting the drops fall on his hands. He looked up as she approached. Princess, he said, standing quickly. You will catch a cold. Lunai smiled. We do not get colds here, but thank you for your care. He sat again, and she joined him. The soft rain made the air feel cool and alive. She lifted her hand, catching a few drops. It feels strange, she said quietly, but it makes me happy. Aaron smiled. That is what I miss most from Earth. Real rain. She looked at him for a moment and then said, Tomorrow, I must make a choice. Everyone expects me to choose power, but I am tired of being what they expect. What would you do if you were me? He looked surprised. Princess, I am just an engineer. I do not understand royal choices. Maybe not, she said softly, but you understand hearts. Aaron thought carefully. If I were you, I would choose what feels true. Power fades, but truth stays. Lunai looked down. Truth is not easy to choose when the whole galaxy is watching. He smiled gently. Humans make choices every day, even when no one believes in them. Sometimes the hardest path is the one that feels right. His words gave her strength. For the first time in years, she felt sure of something. She knew what her heart wanted. She did not want to be part of another political story. She wanted to create a new one that spoke of peace and understanding, not power. That night, Lunai could not sleep. She stood by her window again, watching the stars reflect on the water below. She thought about her people, her duties, and the eyes of the galaxy upon her. She knew her decision would surprise many and perhaps even anger some, but she also knew it was time for honesty. Her heart belonged to the values she had learned from the humans, the value of kindness, truth, and simple connection. The next morning, the grand hall filled with thousands of guests. The air shimmered with lights and sound. Leaders from every planet stood proudly in their seats. Looney entered, wearing a flowing gown of soft silver light. Her crown glowed faintly as she took her place at the center of the stage. The hall fell silent. Her chief advisor stepped forward and announced, "Today, Princess Lune of Virene shall declare her chosen alliance, one that will guide the future of our world." The music stopped. All eyes turned toward her. Lune looked over the sea of faces, powerful rulers, rich merchants, proud ambassadors. Then her eyes found the small group of humans standing quietly at the back. Among them, she saw Aaron, his hands folded behind him, watching with calm respect. He had no idea what she was about to do. Lune took a deep breath. "People of the galaxy," she began, her voice clear and steady. "For many years, we have believed that power is what makes us great. We have built worlds that shine, but somewhere along the way, we forgot how to feel. We forgot what it means to understand one another." The crowd listened in silence. Her words carried emotion that no one expected. During this summit, I met many leaders who spoke of strength, but there was one who spoke of peace, one who reminded me that greatness is not found in crowns or cities, but in hearts. She turned toward the human team. "I choose to ally Virene not with power, but with hope. I choose the world that still dreams, the one that still believes in kindness. I choose Earth." The hall went completely silent. No one moved. Then whispers spread through the crowd like a wave. Some looked shocked, others amazed. The human team stood frozen, unsure if they had heard correctly. Aaron's eyes widened and he stared at her with disbelief. Lune smiled at him gently, a smile that spoke more than words could. She continued, "And I wish to honor the one who showed me this truth. A human who works quietly, who fixes what is broken not for reward but for peace. Aaron, you have taught me more about leadership than any ruler ever has." The hall filled with light as thousands of crystals shimmered above. The audience did not know how to react, but slowly the sound of applause began to rise. It started small and then grew into a wave that echoed across the chamber. For the first time in history, the galaxy saw a princess choose humanity over power. Aaron bowed his head, his face calm, but his eyes bright with emotion. He did not seek attention, yet he had become the center of a moment that would change the universe. As Lune looked at him, she felt a sense of peace unlike any she had known before. She had followed her heart, and for once it had led her home. After the Grand Council, the galaxy was in awe. The story of Princess Lune choosing Earth over the great powers of the stars traveled faster than any official announcement could. Holographic messages and news streams carried her words to planets far and wide. Across many worlds, beings paused to wonder why the princess had made such a choice. Some were shocked. Others were inspired. Most could not stop talking about the quiet human named Aaron, whose sincerity had captured the heart of one of the most admired figures in the galaxy. Back on Virene, the palace was alive with movement. Even though the council had ended, many visitors had not left. Diplomats lingered to speak with Lune, curious to understand her decision. Some offered gifts of apology or admiration, hoping to be forgiven or recognized. But Lune no longer cared about appearances. She had made her choice, and it was not for power, wealth, or influence. It was for honesty, for kindness, for connection. The human team stayed at the palace for a few more days, invited by Lune to observe how her people lived and to share more about Earth. Aaron walked quietly through the halls, helping with devices, checking equipment, and answering questions. Nothing about him changed. Even though the galaxy watched him now with awe, he remained the same calm, gentle engineer who had first spoken to the princess without fear or expectation. Lune spent much of her time with him. She wanted to learn more about his thoughts, his ways, and the world he came from. They walked through gardens that glowed under the twin moons. The flowers lit up when touched. The water reflected colors unseen on Earth, and the air carried a soft hum from energy streams flowing beneath the ground. Lune had always appreciated these wonders, but now, with Iran beside her, everything felt richer. It was not just the beauty of her world. It was the joy of sharing it with someone who saw it with open eyes. "Do you think your world will be ready for us?" Luna asked one evening, watching the ocean shimmer in the moonlight. Aaron thought carefully. "Earth is ready, Princess. Humans are ready to learn, to explore, and to help. They may not have your technology, but they have hope, and hope can achieve more than machines." She smiled, feeling warmth in her heart. "It is strange. I've spent so long learning about politics and alliances, yet the simplest words bring me more comfort than any promise from a ruler." Aaron nodded. Sometimes simplicity is the truest teacher. The days passed quickly. Looney and Aaron often spent time observing how humans and Virene citizens interacted. The humans had started teaching Virene students some basic engineering methods, using simple tools to create small devices. The Virene students were amazed. They had grown up in a world where everything was already perfect, yet these humans were making new things with limited resources. It reminded Lunay that true creativity and strength could come from unexpected places. News of Lunay's choice also reached neighboring star systems. Some leaders sent private messages, curious to know why she had chosen a relatively young planet instead of one of the powerful alliances. Looney did not reply to them formally. Instead, she invited them to observe what she had seen: the dedication, honesty, and courage of a species willing to dream and try, even without perfection. Those who visited were surprised. They saw that humans did not compete for glory. They helped each other quietly, finding joy in small victories. Slowly, even the most skeptical beings began to understand why Lunay had chosen as she did. One day, Lunay and Aran visited the planetary observatory. The hall was filled with telescopes and star charts. Virene scientists were studying distant galaxies, mapping new worlds and tracking movements of celestial bodies. Aaron walked among the instruments with care, asking questions about distant stars and listening as the scientists explained their calculations. He shared observations from Earth, comparing the night sky they knew to the one above Virene. Lunay watched him, fascinated by how his curiosity was endless. He did not seek attention, he simply wanted to learn. "Do you ever get tired of the stars?" Lunay asked him softly. Aaron shook his head. "No, Princess. Stars remind us that we are part of something bigger, that no matter how small we are, our actions matter." Lunay thought about that. She had spent years surrounded by great leaders, yet she often felt small in their presence. Now, standing beside a human, she understood something new. True greatness did not come from titles or technology. It came from courage, kindness, and the willingness to care for others. As the week went on, Looney decided to invite a small celebration in honor of Earth. The event was not grand or political. It was simple. She decorated the palace gardens with floating lights and music. She asked the humans to share songs, stories, and food from their planet. Virene citizens joined out of curiosity. They were astonished by the warmth of human culture, the laughter, the honest mistakes, and the simple kindness that filled every action. Even the most serious scholars smiled and clapped as humans sang songs about hope, dreams, and friendship. During the celebration, Lunay and Aaron stood together, watching as the worlds mingled. She realized that her choice had created something new. It was not just an alliance of planets. It was a bridge between hearts. The galaxy had expected a decision based on power. Instead, they had been shown the power of empathy, trust, and cooperation. The ripple of that choice would be felt for years to come. When the celebration ended, Lunay and Aaron walked alone under the moonlit gardens. Soft lights glowed in the water, and the flowers illuminated their path. Looney spoke quietly. "I never thought I could feel so happy without grandeur or praise. But with you, I feel free." Aaron looked at her gently. "Princess, you have always been free. You only needed someone to remind you." She laughed softly, a sound that seemed to mingle with the hum of the gardens. "And what about you, Aaron? Do you feel free here?" "I do," he said. "Because I am allowed to be myself. And I have someone I trust beside me." She nodded. For the first time, she felt certain about her future. It was no longer about the expectations of others. It was about the choices she made from her heart. With Aran beside her, she felt that anything was possible. Together, they could learn, grow, and bring hope to many worlds. The news of their friendship and alliance reached every corner of the galaxy. Many began to look at humanity differently. They realized that humans were not weak or small. They were beings of heart, courage, and creativity. Beings capable of change, growth, and connection, Lune's choice inspired others to see beyond appearances and power, to value kindness, effort, and honesty. One evening, as the twin suns set over the floating gardens, Lune and Aaron sat together in silence. The sky reflected golden and violet hues. The hum of the gardens and the gentle water created a melody of peace. She turned to him and said softly, "Do you think our worlds can truly learn from each other?" Aaron smiled. "Yes, Princess. Every small step matters, and we will take those steps together." Lune reached out and took his hand, feeling a warmth she had never known before. She realized that the galaxy was watching, yes, but their attention did not matter anymore. What mattered was the understanding they had found. The connection between two worlds, between hearts and between dreams. In that quiet moment, Lune understood something important. The stars had always been distant and bright, yet they had guided her. They had guided her to this human, to this choice, and to a new way of thinking. She had chosen not for duty, not for power, but for truth. And truth, she realized, could shine brighter than any crown or palace. The humans would return to Earth soon, but Lune knew their bond would not end. She had learned from them, and they had learned from her. Together, they would create something new, a connection between worlds that was built on respect, honesty, and care. And as the galaxy watched, they would see that greatness is not measured by how many seek you, but by whom you choose and why. As the night deepened and the lights of Virene reflected in the water, Lune whispered softly, "Everyone wanted me, but I chose you. Human." Aaron looked at her, his expression calm but filled with understanding. He did not need words to reply. The bond between them spoke louder than any speech, louder than any applause, louder than any decision the galaxy could watch. It was a promise of hope, a reminder of kindness, and the beginning of a story that would inspire many for generations. And so, under the silver skies of Virene, two worlds began to grow closer. One was old and perfect, the other young and humble. Yet together they discovered something new. They discovered that the greatest choice of all is the one made from the heart. The days after the Grand Council passed in a quiet, gentle rhythm. The galaxy had spoken about Princess Lune's choice, yet she herself was not concerned with fame or recognition. She had made a decision from the heart, and now she focused on understanding what it truly meant. With Iran and the human team still at Virene, she had time to explore their ideas, share her own, and see how two worlds could grow closer together. Lune walked through the palace gardens, her silver robes brushing against the glowing flowers. She stopped near a small pond where the water reflected the colors of the twin suns as they began their descent. The humans were nearby, setting up small devices to study the planet's energy flow. Aaron moved quietly, his hands careful and precise, yet there was a lightness in his movements that Lune admired. She approached him. "Aaron," she said softly, "do you ever wonder what life would be like if your people had lived here instead of on Earth?" He looked up, smiling gently. "Maybe it would have been easier, but I think humans are meant to grow by facing the world as it is, not as we wish it to be." Lune considered his words. She realized that Earth's simplicity, its imperfections and its challenges were not weaknesses. They were what made humans strong, creative, and full of hope. She thought of the laughter she had heard, the mistakes they had shared, and the kindness they had shown. There was a quiet power in it, a power that could not be bought or forced. Over the next few days, Lune organized a joint project between Virene and Earth. The humans taught Virene students about Earth technology and simple engineering methods. In return, the Virene shared their advanced systems and knowledge of energy, medicine, and art. The exchange was filled with curiosity and laughter. Mistakes were made, but each mistake led to new discoveries. Lune watched it all with joy. She had never felt so alive. For the first time, she was not just a princess. She was a learner, a friend, and a guide. One evening, as the twin moons rose over the city, Lune and Aaron walked along the floating bridges of the gardens. Soft lights glowed beneath their feet, and the air carried the scent of glowing flowers. She paused, looking at him. "Aaron, do you know what I have realized?" He shook his head. "What, princess?" "I have learned that strength is not in being admired or obeyed. It is in being understood, and understanding comes from listening, caring, and sharing without expecting reward." Aaron nodded, his calm eyes reflecting the lights above. "That is something humans have known for a long time. We make mistakes, but we always try to do what is right. Lunai smiled. And that is why I chose you. Not for your power, not for your skill, but because you reminded me of what it means to care. Aaron looked at her quietly, and for a moment, no words were needed. The stars reflected in the water below, and the soft glow of the garden seemed to echo the quiet happiness between them. The humans soon prepared to return to Earth, but Lune wanted their connection to continue. She arranged for a permanent exchange program where knowledge, culture, and friendship could flow between Vereen and Earth. Students, engineers, artists, and scientists could travel between worlds, learning and sharing. It was a new beginning, not for power, but for understanding. On the last evening before the humans left, Lune held a farewell ceremony in the palace gardens. The floating lights reflected the glow of the twin moons, and a gentle music filled the air. She addressed the crowd of Vereen citizens and the human delegation. Today, she said, we celebrate more than friendship. We celebrate curiosity, kindness, and the courage to follow our hearts. Humans have taught us that greatness is not measured by what we possess, but by what we give to others. Let this be the first step toward a galaxy united not by fear or power, but by trust and understanding. The humans listened quietly. Aaron stepped forward and said, Princess Lune, you have shown us that even the smallest act of kindness can change worlds. We will carry your lessons back to Earth, and together our people will grow stronger. Lune felt a warm glow in her heart. She looked at Aran, and he met her gaze calmly. Their eyes held unspoken promises of continued friendship, trust, and care. For the first time, she felt completely at peace with the world, with herself, and with the future. After the ceremony, Lune walked with Aaron to a quiet balcony overlooking the silver-blue oceans. The twin moons reflected on the water, creating a pathway of light. She turned to him. Aaron, thank you. You have given me more than I can ever say. You have reminded me that even in a world of perfection, hearts matter most. Aaron smiled. Princess, it is I who am grateful. You have shown me a world I could never imagine, and the courage to be part of it. They stood in silence, watching the stars. The galaxy around them seemed vast, but the distance between worlds felt smaller than ever. Lune knew that this was only the beginning. Together, humans and Vereen could explore, learn, and share. They could create new stories, new friendships, and new possibilities. The galaxy would watch, and perhaps it would learn as well. As the humans prepared to leave for Earth, Lune gave Aran a small gift. It was a crystal pendant shaped like a star, glowing softly with light. To remind you, she said, that even far away our worlds are connected. Aaron accepted it carefully, holding it as if it were the most precious thing he had ever seen. I will treasure it, Princess, and I will never forget what you have taught me. The next morning, the human ships rose into the sky, carrying engineers, scientists, and dreams back to Earth. Lune and her people watched as the ships disappeared into the stars. She felt a quiet sadness, but it was accompanied by hope. The humans would carry the lessons of Vereen to their world, and Vereen would continue to grow, inspired by the courage, kindness, and sincerity of the human heart. After the humans departed, Lune spent her days walking through the gardens, reading reports from the exchange program, and observing how her people applied what they had learned. Students experimented with new devices. Citizens discussed ideas from Earth. Small acts of kindness, shared stories, and cooperation spread through Vereen like a gentle light. The princess smiled quietly, knowing that her choice had created more than an alliance. It had created a wave of inspiration that would last for generations. One evening, as the twin moons rose again, Lune stood on the balcony with a group of young Vereen students. She pointed to the stars. These stars are not so far, she said. They remind us that the galaxy is full of wonders waiting to be discovered. But the greatest wonder is understanding one another. The students listened, their eyes wide with curiosity. They did not yet know the full story of how a human had changed their princess, but they understood the lesson. Kindness, honesty, and courage mattered more than titles or power, and that understanding would guide them in the years to come. Lune then walked to the edge of the balcony, where the gentle wind carried the scent of glowing flowers. She closed her eyes, feeling peace in her heart. She thought of Aaron, of Earth, and of the galaxy beyond. She knew that the journey was far from over. There would be new challenges, new ideas, and new friends. But now she had learned that the greatest choices are made from the heart, not from expectation. At that moment, the soft glow of the stars reflected on the oceans below. And Looney whispered quietly, "Everyone wanted me, but I chose you." Human. Somewhere far across the galaxy, Aaron looked up at the night sky, feeling the same connection. He held the crystal pendant gently in his hand and smiled. Their bond had crossed worlds, teaching two planets that the heart is the strongest force of all. As the moons rose higher, casting silver light across Virene, Looney knew that humanity and her world would grow together, not through power, wealth, or fame, but through trust, understanding, and care. She had chosen wisely, and the galaxy had seen that greatness does not come from who wants you, but from whom you choose. And so, under the silver skies of Virene, the story of a princess and a human engineer became a symbol for many worlds. It reminded everyone that even the smallest hearts can change the galaxy, that choices of kindness and courage shine brighter than any crown, and that understanding each other is the greatest adventure of all. From that day on, the stars above Virene seemed to shine a little brighter. They reflected the promise of unity, the joy of discovery, and the power of a heart that dared to follow truth over expectation. And somewhere between the floating gardens and the glowing oceans, Looney and Aaron continued their journey, not as princess and guest, but as friends, learners, and pioneers of a new story that spanned worlds.